Moment we've all been waiting for, 9D, and it is COVID-19 discussion and recommendations. Administrator Bergen.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the council, it has been a busy day. It's been a busy few days. I think internally, from a staff perspective, we have spent almost literally all day working on COVID-19, trying to come up with some recommendations for City Council as this continues to progress. If you haven't had the chance, I know the President was on this afternoon, made some additional restrictions, recommendations. The Governor also was on right at about supper time, just right before the City Council meeting, with a recommendation to close bars and restaurants. We're in an ever-changing world, and internally we are trying to figure out what we as the City of Brainerd need to be doing and considering for the protection of our staff, our council, our residents, our community. I did hand out a memo with a couple of recommendations that we would like you to consider. So I think first and foremost is when we start talking about a limited exposure, we're hearing from the CDC that we should be, maintaining a safe distance, limiting our crowds. I know the President today has reduced that down to 10. That happened just shortly, or this afternoon. While most of our city services will continue to fully operate, we are recommending that we modify the way that we deliver our services. And consider closing our City Hall, Parks, Fire, Police, and Street Garage. I use the word closing lightly. Closing does not mean that we will not be providing city services at this time. It means that we will continue to provide city services.
So closing to the public.
Closing to the public. So really, still delivering services, or most of our services, but limiting the public exposure. And it might be one way that we can do. I know the city of Crosby, Golden Valley, Plymouth, and Duluth, at the last time I had checked, had all made decisions to, Mr. Chair.
And you and I had spoken about this at maybe 3:30 this afternoon, and the county was not closing, but as we walked in tonight, there is a sign on the door that the county is closed for walk-in traffic now too. So
that's right.
Things are changing quickly.
And literally, I started writing this memo this morning. By the time I got done, it had completely changed. It's just so, watch the news. You see how drastically and quickly this is changing. So that would be one of our recommendations. Most of our residents can continue to do city business. We have online options, we have phone, we have email, we have snail mail, U.S. mail, things like Park and Rec program registration. And as Parks Director Saylor informed me, we're not even quite ready to open those registrations yet. Building permits, licensing, bus tickets, dog licenses. Most of our services can be handled online, or just a short phone call or an email away to any city staff that is prepared to respond. So that would be one of our recommendations. Another one is we think about exposure not only to our staff but to our residents. Rental licensing inspections. It's a very important program. But at this point, it may be a good idea to suspend those until further notice, or unless we have an emergency. Of course, there is an emergency, we will be prepared to respond. That brings up our building inspections. Our recommendation is to continue to perform all building inspections as long as it is safe under the recommendations by the CDC. And again, those recommendations also continue to change. My guess is they've changed from the time this meeting started until now. Also, upon the recommendation of the CDC, we're recommending that the city cancel all special events effective immediately for the next 8 weeks. That is the recommendation of the CDC. I believe it was crowds of 50 that went down to 25, and now I believe I'm hearing 10.
Would you like a motion to direct staff to go review anything we've approved over the last few months, or can you guys just handle that? Because we've approved events that are going to happen over the next 8 weeks that we no longer approve of happening.
Yes, and we would like the council to make a motion for us to reach back out to those based on CDC recommendations that those are being canceled, and we can, from a staff perspective.
Do you want that now, or do you have a few you're going to ask for when you're done presenting this?
I have several, and again, my apologies. I would normally bring a recommendation to you with motions, and again, I was literally
Yep.
writing this as I was running out the door.
I think we'll wait till she's done.
one
I think there'll be separate motions, but we'll wait until you get done. You know what you want, right?
Yes, we do at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe different tomorrow. The other thing that we are recommending that the city council consider is canceling all advisory and ad hoc meetings, committee meetings until further notice, unless an emergency matter needs attention. Now, we've heard a couple of things this evening, right? We've heard of the park board considering the grant application that needs to be submitted until by March 27th. That may be an emergency situation where the park board needs to meet. I believe there was a planning commission item as well that we've also discussed. We have to figure out how we conduct city business in this new normal, at least in the time being. Mr. Chair, I believe Alderman Pritchett has a question.
You know, on that line, I know looking through some of these documents that you sent us, the state and Governor Walz had given some suggestions for e-meetings, that somebody be present at one of the buildings. That would probably be a sensible route to take to see what committee members would be able to do that. I mean, you can do it easily with Skype or Zoom or go to meeting. There's several apps that are out there.
And as of this afternoon, and again, in the spirit of everything changing, as President Johnson mentioned, the county was not going to modify how they were providing services with the public coming in. Now they are. The president now has recommended restricting it to 10, where when this packet went out, we were at 50. It just is constantly changing. This is where the city council has been able to meet. After this evening's meeting, we will no longer be able to meet in this facility. We need to identify another location. I have not had the opportunity to speak with Chief Holmes or Chief McQuiston about the availability of either PD or the fire department. But our upcoming meetings, we need to be talking about where that location is. And then, as Alderman Pritchett mentioned, following our open meeting laws, some of these meetings can be handled electronically, but there must be one council member present at the location where our meeting is being held. And right now, this is where our meeting is being held until we leave. So again, some unknowns.
Well, Tad's the new guy.
Speaking of, the Arboretum would be the next one. I don't know if they're canceling or not, but I had a conflict. I was going to remotely attend that one, but my conflict got canceled, so I'd be available.
Great. And last but not least, I think this is probably the easiest one, is just recommending that we temporarily restrict any business meetings, travel, training, out-of-state travel, including conferences until further notice, and requiring all staff to utilize telephone and video conferencing instead of face-to-face meeting, starting immediately and going in effect until further notice. So, as I mentioned, our world is just changing. We need to, as the city of Brainerd, figure out how we're going to respond and react. You will have business that you need to conduct. What does that look like going forward? I think there are a lot of questions if you look at how Italy and Spain and France have reacted to this and where they have come 2 weeks ago until where they are now. Is that something we can expect the United States at some point to be faced? I don't know. But I think we are best to err on the side of caution and plan for the worst and hope for the best. So along with some of these recommendations that's laid out before you this evening, we are also recommending that we schedule, and I'd ask you to adjourn to a meeting on March 19th, because again, as things have changed from Thursday to today, from this morning to today, we also recognize that things are going to change between now and March 19th. So we are asking you to put some placeholders on a couple of meetings so that you as a council can conduct business, so that we can bring further recommendations to you in the future. we are asking that you kind of placehold the 19th and also the March 23rd, which you are already planning on doing for the appointment of a new mayor. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to try to guide you through a motion. We can go through each item at a time. There may be additional things that you as council have thought about that we as staff have not considered yet or are not prepared to bring forward to you yet. I think there's a lot of research that we need to do, as just to remind you that we do have 7 unions. And so these are also discussions that we need to have with our union reps. And so this is ever changing. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer questions. You have several staff here that also can help address. We are working together as a team. What I will say to you is you have a great staff here. The department heads, the staff, very dedicated, very devoted to the city of Brainerd and making sure that we're doing the best job that we can.
And they've done a great job with their social distancing tonight, too.
Yes.
Everybody is 6 feet away from the next person.
Well, 6 feet laterally, not necessarily.
I guess we do have
you
some
know,
from there.
It's kind of a sphere thing, so.
But I think, does anybody have any questions, or do you want to kind of get into the recommended motions?
I just have one question, like, when you brought up the unions, I know I've read that Governor Walz has through executive order guaranteed the salaries of certain employees. Do you know which, have you looked to see which employees are covered? I know he directed that at schools particularly, but that would be something to look at also.
Yeah, schools, I think he was hospitality.
Healthcare, yeah, I'm not sure what all it was.
I don't know.
Again, so much to research, so much to learn, and the reason for having subsequent meeting.
For us, Jennifer.
I think
So,
we did have-
Mr. Chair, my first recommended motion would be to, and I guess I would just recommend the motion state that we are recommending that we modify service delivery and close our city hall, parks, fire, and street garage to the public while most city services continue to fully operate at this time.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The recommended motion did not mention the police department.
She said.
When you read it,
Sorry.
you didn't. You intended police department to be included in that.
I
And
did,
do we
Mr. Chair.
want an end date? Are we closing for 2 weeks, or are we just closing until further notice? Kelly?
Mr. Chair, I think we can make this easier.
Yep.
I think we can adopt the recommendations by the city administrator based on this. I move that we adopt the city administrator's memo dated March 16th on the COVID-19 recommendations based on CDC for 2 weeks, and I so move.
Second.
And Mr. Chair, members of the council, I would
That's
ask,
AM.
That's fine too. That's perfect.
I would ask that you be patient with us. We are trying to get you as much information as we possibly can, as quickly as we can, but as it continues to change, we'll just ask for your patience as we're, please know that we are trying to pull everything we can together so you have the most up-to-date information at the time that we meet. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Mr. Chair, just for
to
clarification.
support them in their planning and meeting, yeah.
And then in addition, to have an elected official in the room, so the elected official that would represent you as the council as well, that could be a liaison to staff.
Oh, you're effectively our liaison to all of the staff now. Congratulations.
Corona liaison.
It's got feathers, many feathers.
Thank you.